All right, let's test your knowledge up to this point. Let's go in and put a new row in A10 here, a new quantity for 30 and a price of 20. And I would like for you to calculate the total revenue. So you sold 30 t-shirts at $20 a shirt. How much would your total revenue be? We know that it's just A10 times B10, but go ahead and write in the formula. Okay, I hope that you were able to accomplish that. Let's take a look here. You may have tried to do this where you typed in A10 times B10 and you were getting really excited. It looks really good. You knew to reference A10 here. You did a reference. That's great. You referenced cell B10. You know you want to take A10 times B10. You did all of that exactly correct. And then you hit enter and you're wondering what the heck is going on here. Why didn't it tell you 30 times 20 or 600? Well, what are we missing? Hopefully you thought of it. Every single formula or every cell reference is going to need to be written in the style of a formula. And so every formula needs to start off with an equal sign in the formula bar. So look what happened when I hit equals. It changed the color of this to blue, the color of this to red. It shows us these cells are now actually being referenced just like we expected them to be. And this time when we hit enter, we get what we expected, 600. Great. Now let's take it one step further and go to cell A11. And let's type in 50 this time. And how about 10 for price? I'm just hitting the tab key, remember, to go over one cell to the right. And now this time, instead of writing in the formula again, we know we can save time by bringing the formula down or copying this formula as it's written here and doing a copy and paste operation. Remember, this is the most powerful idea of Microsoft Excel, that you can copy the formula and paste it into another cell, and Excel adjusts automatically based on how you copy and paste. You might remember the trick to go in the bottom right hand corner and see when the cursor changes to one black bar and it's intersecting another, and click and drag down. Or you could do Control C for copy. You see the dashed lines going around the cell now. Hitting the down arrow to cell C11 and hitting Command V for paste, or going to edit paste. There we have it. 50 times 10 is 500. Now you notice the relative cell reference here. We had A11 and B11 with no dollar signs. We were using the relative cell reference. We were not using dollar signs or an absolute cell reference. So could we have used an absolute cell reference there? Yes, we actually could have. We could have put dollar signs where? I want you to think about it for a second. When we went to copy and paste this formula down one, you should be asking yourself, what's going to change? Is it the columns, the rows, or both? Think about it. Okay. When we copy and paste this down one, we want the rows to change, but we don't want the columns to change. So A and B should stay the same. We're taking something from A and taking something from B, but the row is no longer 10. When we copy and paste this formula down, the row has gone from 10 to 11. So we could go here and put dollar signs before the columns, A and B, and hit enter. We now have an absolute cell reference that's like this style here. And we could Control C for copy, move the arrow down, Control V for paste, or Command V. And there you have it. $A, $B, but this time it's not 10 like it was for this cell right here, A10, B10. When I hit the down arrow, it's A11, B11, just as we expected. When we brought the formula down or copy and pasted it down, it changed the 10 to an 11. All right, so we did it correctly. Either one of those would work. Again, reminder that we'll take a look at other examples where you'll see where you might not have wanted to go with the relative cell reference, and the dollar sign would have worked or does work better for you in this case. And it all just depends on the scenario. So we'll get to those later on. But just a reminder, real fast, if we had put the $sign before the 10 and hit enter and then did copy and paste, you should remember that the output is going to be exactly the same, 600, because it's still referring to these exact two cells. So I can prove that there by clicking on the formula bar. When I did the copy and paste, it locked cell A10 and cell B10 into position, and it said, when you bring this formula down, don't make a change to these guys. And so it's still this cell times this cell. And so that's why we get 600 and 600. It's not doing what we expected or what we wanted to take 50 times 10. So it's doing what it's told to do, just not doing what you wanted it to do. So just get in the habit of checking after you do the copy and paste, going and checking the cell to make sure it's exactly what you expected. We're now at a good point to look at the basic mathematical operations that you can use in Microsoft Excel. To learn those, let's open up a new sheet. So go down to the plus button, click on that. And we're zoomed out really far. So for my example on my screen, I'm just going to go ahead and zoom it all the way into 400% again. And let's in column or cell A1, let's type in time period 1. Doesn't matter if it's upper or lowercase. And time period 2 and enter. You'll notice that when I put text in any cell, whatever the default sizing is, it's going to cut off a part of the text. Now the text is still there. It still says time period 1, but it's just hidden behind this cell right here. And the way that we show that or make it visible again is to move your mouse up in between the column A and column B, and from at the point at which your mouse turns from a down arrow to arrows pointing left and right. At that point, you can left click and drag the cursor over to the right, and I'll show some shortcuts later for quickly doing that in Excel to snap it to the size that you want. But let's do it again between B and C, and click and drag, and there we have it. Let's put in cell C1 result, and let's do in cell D2 add, in cell D3 subtract, in cell D4 multiply, and cell D5 divide. So that's what we're going to learn here. And let's go all the way back up to cell A2, and let's start putting in some random numbers. So this would be maybe you wanted to measure the difference between how many, the count of some object in a process, how many there were at time period 1, and then you wanted to check how many were in that process again an hour later. So let's just imagine some fake data here. Let's put in some random numbers. I'll put the same one in twice, and some more random numbers here. Okay, and I'd like to perform these 4 calculations with these numbers, okay, only in this row. So these 2 numbers we're going to add, these 2 numbers we're going to subtract, these 2 numbers we're going to multiply and divide. You've got the pattern here. Again, you could put this in any order you want. I'm just writing them out this way so that we can follow along in some organized fashion, but you could have done subtract, add, divide, multiply. It doesn't matter. You decide what you want to do in any cell. And so let's just start off with the first row. Hopefully you've got your data inputted. And we want to add these 2 numbers. I'll do the incorrect version first. So if you want to follow along, just wait a second. I'll type in the incorrect formula, and I'll do A2. And this time for add, we want the plus symbol and B2. Now remember, when I hit enter, it's not going to give us the result we're expecting because it thinks that this is text. And this is where all those ideas that we talked about earlier come into play. It thinks that this is the same kind of data as this. I know that seems a little confusing, but it thinks that A2 plus B2 is what you want to write out in words. You're not trying to actually calculate anything. Microsoft Excel is interpreting this as, if you were to print this sheet, you're telling Excel that you want to print A2 plus B2, the letters, not the actual result of A2 plus B2. So when you don't put in an equal sign, that's what you get. An equal sign tells Excel this is a formula. So let's do that. Equals A2 plus B2, and ta-da, we get 38. The two numbers have been added, and we're on to the next row. So let's do subtract. We're going to start off with an equal sign this time, and I'm going to hit the left arrow over twice to indicate A3. We could have just typed in A3, but I just hit the left arrow over twice, and then minus or a dash, and I'm going to hit the left arrow again for B3 and enter. Okay, multiply is equals. I'm going to hit the left arrow twice, and we've already done this one, shift 8 or asterisk, and left arrow again, A4 times B4. And finally, divide is equals. Let's do A5, that's left arrow twice, and then a forward slash, and then left arrow over again to B5, and there we have it. That's add, subtract, multiply, divide in Excel.